following announcement has been paid for by the Celtic World Order.
Hello there, good evening, welcome back to Celtic World Order podcast. As always, I'm Steve O'Matt, and we're here to break down what was a very disappointing game, let's put it lightly as we possibly can. In fact, let's not, it was absolutely garbage, and of course, VAR interventions, we'll get on to that, we'll talk about it, but at the end of the day, I just don't think Celtic turned up, and it was bitterly disappointing, particularly when you thought of what could have happened. Thankfully, of course, the team across the city, there was a couple of touchdowns over there in Ibrox, but it was not for the boys in blue. And we got away with one, to put it lightly, as they fell down to a 2-0 home defeat. But we focus on ourselves, and it was very disappointing. We asked the question, where we were going to have a European hangover. In that first half, it looked as if Celtic just had a regular hangover, and it had been one too many beers after they were entitled after the game in Munich. So we'll cover that. Nice wee fast one, zip through. And of course, I'm sure we'll have a wee laugh if you want later on about what happened elsewhere. So, as always, wee bit of housekeeping at the start. Welcome back to the channel. If you're one of our returning subscribers, we are greatly appreciative of your support. If you're new, then it's a warm welcome yourself as well. Most important thing, before you leave, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It costs you absolutely nothing. Hit the wee bell icon. Every time we go live, every time we do an upload, you get notified. You don't miss any of our content, and it keeps you in the loop. If you want to help out, you can, like somewhere, 420, the original, the OG, you can do the membership, $1.99 a month. There's no additional content attached at this moment in time. It just helps put all this together because this costs us, even though the content is free. If you want to get us elsewhere, catch up on X at CWPod1888. We're on Spotify if you want to listen on the move. We are on TikTok, and we're also on that new thing called Blue Sky. So anyway, that is it. Let's crack on. Let's break it down. It is what it is, but there's a job to be done. Celtic had a job to do, and unfortunately, they didn't do it. Now, as we went into this, we sat and we surmised, Paddy and I, were we going to make some changes? Of course, there was always going to be room for a wee bit of squad rotation. We've got a decent enough squad. I think today showed perhaps that there's still gaps in the quality, same way the same script that we had against Munich, that wee extra dose of quality isn't quite there, and that's certainly something, of course, that we'll be looking at towards the summer with a new campaign, and of course looking towards qualification to get back into the Champions League and all the riches that come there with that. We did make a couple of changes from the squad during the week. There it is. The main key ones is, of course, where the return of Taylor at left back. I personally thought that was a wee bit controversial. I've liked what I've seen with Jeffrey Schlupp. Certainly when he came on, made a big difference, and I'm sure we'll touch on that. We had Engels keeping his place, McCowan coming in place of Hatate, and we shuffled the pack up front. We had Kuhn in there, Maeda reverting back to the winger position, and we played Ida through the middle in spite of the amazing performances that we've been getting out of Maeda. And again, we'll get back onto it because we eventually did change that up and it yielded results. But when you look at that, certainly a side that you would expect to be more than capable of taking on Hibs, despite their very quietly good form. I think they're unbeaten in something like 12. I actually think we're the last team to have beat them. So good has their run of form been. It's went a wee bit unnoticed as they've managed to notch their way up the table. We weren't taking this one lightly. We sat there and we spoke about it, and we says it was going to be a tough game. Well, I thought it would be. It was not been a happy hunting ground for Celtic and Brendan Rodgers. Paddy, of course, he was 4-0 down. He's not, and unfortunately that did not come to fruition. But in terms of that, yeah, you look at it and you think to yourself, we should do well enough here. So how did it happen? What exactly went wrong? Well, there's a million and one things. Get your comments in there. Let me know. What was your thoughts? Where did it all go wrong, particularly in that first half? We'll go on to the VAR. Let me know what you think about that. We've got a few things that we'll bring up regarding that as well. So what I found really funny was we're playing away, and usually you expect the home team to come at you nice and early, put the pressure on you. Of course they did. They scored very early, but you know what I mean. You think that the pace is going to be there, but right from the off, the opening minute, I know the goal came extremely early, but what baffled me just in that opening 60 seconds was just how wide open. Both teams were. Now, I know you'll say, Steve, well, it's 1 minute we talking about, but the gaping gaps of the all over the pitch were incredible. I just couldn't believe how open spaces both teams were, and that's essentially the story of from where we kicked off to the opening goal. Those gaping spaces there, Celtic looked as if they were going to try and take advantage of that nice and early. There's a brilliant through ball. It gets cut out by Hibs, and as quick as that, similar to the way that we normally do to teams, they manage to spin off, get themselves up round the park. It's a beautiful through ball. You can maybe question, where is the left side of our defence when this is all going down? I don't think Taylor covered himself in glory. No, he didn't. He was one of the worst things. He was actually verging on guilty of war crimes as far as I'm concerned in that Celtic shirt today. Him and Trusty a wee bit out of position, to say the least. And it goes through to Josh Campbell, and before you know it, blink of an eye, casually slips it home. We're 1-0 down. Absolutely mental. Mental. What a start for Hibs. It's quite frankly the perfect start for them, and it looks like an uphill battle for ourselves straight on in a place where, as we say, is usually quite a tough hunting ground for Celtic. Now, what's pretty clear here is that Hibs, as we say, have got a good bit of form around them. They've been playing well. They probably did not expect to score that early. Let's be honest here. And the one thing that I did like, believe it or not, I have no problem giving the opposition a bit of credit where it's due, is they did not go with the standard camping in. Clearly, they done their scouting well. Clearly, they looked at what we did in Munich, and it was maybe something of a blueprint for them in terms of how they should be playing, because they were able to be balanced in their play. They pushed themselves forward when they needed. They soaked up, well, let's be honest here, they soaked up very little pressure from Celtic in that first half, and they made it very difficult. They made it a really hard afternoon for our backline. One thing that we've usually been pretty good for, particularly when we look at the start of the season, is being robust at the back, well set up, well drilled. We're questioning, is that partnership between Trusty and Carter Vickers there? We've been singing the praises of Alistair Johnson at right back again. I think when we look at him, we'll go on to him, of course. He had a busy, good afternoon. I didn't really have too many issues with the performance from him. Left back position, it's now a running joke, is it not? It's something like flogging a dead horse. It is pretty clear, as Paddy's saying there. Don't want to hang one man out to dry, but I think when the manager makes 3 subs, it's pretty clear that something hasn't worked, and you really have got to single out, unfortunately, Greg Taylor, who was culpable for various catalogue of issues in that first half. He then gets himself booked, and for me personally, I thought it was a walk-in red card. He was pulled out at half-time, and rightfully so. Booked at 23 minutes. But up until that point, it was disjointed. That was the one thing that I'd say. It was disjointed. I spoke to a few folk about it. I spoke to Paddy in depth. We all know that he's been on something of a Engels hate run as of late. For me, I am still sticking to my guns. I think he's a fantastic player, a very good acquisition. And yes, we will have a level of inconsistency from him. But come a full summer, I think next season we'll see the best of it. However, that does not excuse him, nor does it excuse his compatriots in the side for the lacklustre and, quite frankly, verging on completely embarrassing first half that Celtic put out. It was completely anonymous. They were as well as having nobody lined up there. That's the reality of it. And I'm looking at you, Arne Engels. I'm looking at you, Greg Taylor, and Austin Trusty. I just felt that left side was getting pulled about left, right, and centre. I almost felt sorry for Callum McGregor. He was trying to motivate. He was trying to get his foot in the ball, but the simplest of passes from all players all over the pitch weren't quite working. We weren't utilising Dyson Maeda and Kuhn quite as much as we should be. I complained a wee bit about that when we were the first half in Munich. Of course, that turned out well, all said and done, but we didn't utilise the width of our game that we're so used to as well as we could have in that first half. It was simple, basic mistakes, short passes, couldn't make a 2-yard pass, let alone a 20-yard zinger, out the play, getting pushed, getting bullied. In fairness to Hibs, they were up for it. They'd done what they had to do. They were physical. They got in our faces. They shut us down early. They held their shape. They were very disciplined in what they'd done. And at that point, it was pretty much plain sailing for them. A couple of scares at times. Balls come into our box. I didn't think we dealt with the cross balls into the box very well at all. And that's really, really concerning for me. Just looking at Carter Vickers and Trusty. Normally that's food and drink for the two of them, particularly Trusty, who seems to really thrive with the game in front of him, just doing the basics of defending and knocking it away. But for me, nobody in that team was doing their part the way they should have. And again, I've got to come on to it. We asked about it last night, being Paddy sat, and we says, what do we do when it comes to that forward line? I was all for it. I says, Adamida has to come back in. He's our main striker. He's the guy that we're going to have to start depending on there. But it didn't happen for him, did it? What do you think? Was it lack of service? Was he just trying too hard? Was he just garbage? For my take, where I was at with it, I just felt that we're very one-dimensional. It seems when we've got Adamida in the play. I said last night, and I got a bit of criticism for it. I says, for us to get the best out of it, what are we doing? Well, we need to deliver into the box. He needs to live in the box inside the 6 yards, and that should be his area. Just the front of the goal and attack it, be instinctive, put the balls away. That's exactly what I thought that we should have been doing with Adamida. Yet today, we didn't get any service into him. That naturally dragged him out. Tried to get him more involved in the play because the service wasn't there. And once he starts doing that, it's chasing shadows, and it's one of those thankless tasks of running about with absolutely little to no reward whatsoever. Adamida, for me, it's, forget that one there. That's a performance to be forgetting. Let's not bring that back up. But it does then beg a big question going forward, because Celtic's goal between now and the end of the season is very simple. It is win, and win more until it becomes mathematically impossible for those over the other end of the city to win. Adamida has got a decent goals return, particularly in the Champions League. You'll point that out to me. Yes, very well. Great, amazing in the Champions League, and I am grateful for his efforts there. And I do see that he's got attributes that need to be fine-tweaked and need to be made better. But for me, I'm worried because it's either feast or famine. It's either fantastic or absolutely dog meat. There's no in-between, unfortunately, for me with Adamida. He's either on it like a car bonnet, or he is one of the worst things that you've ever seen. And today he fell into that category, unfortunately. That, for me, then asks the question, when we need to win, should we actually do what I've said time and time again I didn't think was the way to go forward? Do we start just using Maeda through the middle? Try and kill games off early with that Maeda through the middle, Jota and Kuhn forward 3. Get the game, get a decent lead, and then you bring on Adamida at that 65-minute point. Now, I know that that's going to sound a bit daft. You'll say that's going to affect, obviously, his confidence, yada, yada, yada. And I completely get you, and I agree with that also. When I was speaking to Paddy earlier on, I had that exact conundrum, and I says, do we do that? Would the manager do that? Would he pull him out and run with Maeda moving forward at risk of affecting the big man's confidence? Because that's been part of the problem with Kyogo hanging about. He wasn't getting a lot of game time. And then we says he thrived a wee bit on being the main man when he knew that he was the one everybody was looking towards to score the goals. We saw in very good flashes that he shows what he can do. But as I say, it's a game of consistency. And I know that consistency can come with game time. But when we look at since Kyogo's left and we look at all the games, it has been, as I say, it's either one or the other. It's brilliant or absolute mess. And that's the conundrum. That's the thing that the manager really, really has to look at. That's the thing he needs to sit there. And as Chilpel saying, absolutely zero impact. It's a hard one to take, as I say. And today, it's just perhaps one of those games. And this time next week, when we play throughout the week, we maybe go and we smash somebody, we win our next game comfortably, Adam either scores 2 goals and we're sitting here and saying, what was the complaints? But as we always say on the channel, we're only looking at this one game in isolation and then thinking, well, what could we do or what should we do moving forward from that? I just felt that it was very low impact. As I said there, 0 impact probably even is fair enough, because our best chance comes in 29 minutes and it comes from Alistair Johnston, of all people. It's a brilliant ball scooped up for the out on the right-hand side for McCown, nice in over the top. Ball bounces at the near post, half volley, he hits it well enough. Keeper saves it, but up until then, that's really all Celtic wrote in terms of chances. And with the attacking flair that we have from Kuhn, what we've seen from Maeda, what we did see later on in the game from Maeda, and of course with the likes of McGregor chipping in with the goals and the big man up front, it was baffling that Celtic were offering little to nothing in the way of shots. You flip that around when those substitutions were made at half time, and it was like chalk and cheese, night and day. Clearly, I would have loved to have been a fly in the wall at the half-time to hear what the manager says, because there's no doubt they get an absolute rollicking. Now, as Barry's saying here, it's perhaps a natural reaction after getting out in the Champions League, and I do get that. As we say, there's always that, will there be a hangover? Will they be exerted? Will they be tired? Part of that will come down to, yes, of course they will. They will be tired, but at the same time, we can't really use that as an excuse. If you want to be a big club and you want to be playing on all fronts, including Europe, you've got to account for that. And that'll partly come back to the fact that we don't have a good enough squad, unfortunately, to properly rotate and get the best out of players. Because if we did, we wouldn't have been having this conversation, and the substitutions probably wouldn't have been made in the half-time mark, put it that way. But that was such as the way it was. And then we get to another, what's our next chance? We're limited. It's free kicks, it's corners, and we've plenty of them. And once again, we'll say, what are we doing with our set-piece plays? Because we seem to get an absolute barrel load of free kicks and corners. And yeah, we've been scoring a wee bit more from corners, but we are generally quite wasteful. That's really as much as she wrote. Cal McGregor gets chopped him down. I think it's maybe about half an hour, 35 minutes, chopped down the edge of the box. You've got a couple of guys over it. Arne Engels looks as if he fancies it. And then he just daisy cutters it, and it's an easy save for the goalkeeper. Again, that's what we have been limited from. And then we still get our knuckles wrapped once again, because who looks more likely to score? Well, it's the home team. And it's a great save from Kasper Schmeichel. The ball's played in. Again, we struggled with those cross balls in. That was real Achilles heel for Celtic for a lot of last season. And we thought we'd started to really iron that out. But today, it was coming back to haunt us with a vengeance. Ball's crossed in, simple ball. Guys at the back post, headers it. It's a great save from Kasper Schmeichel. And as it turns out, it's offside. He's not to know it. But that is pretty much all she wrote for Celtic, because continually we keep getting these balls in, and that would inevitably be our undoing. We will get onto that as incoming, but before we go 2-0 down, we have another chance, or a half chance if you will, and it comes through Adam Ida. And in terms of when the big moments come, the big players need to step up. It's poor decision making from Ida. He gets through and he's got options in the centre of the box to square it, and he just makes a melee it, fluffs his lines, loses possession. We get a goal at that point, it can really turn things, but it's not to be, because as I says, here they come. Josh Campbell, header, 2-0. And at that point, to be totally honest with you, I'm thinking to myself, the game's gone. I'm not going to lie. I just didn't feel that we would have got the transformation that we inevitably did get, and thankfully got, albeit slightly later into the second half. But at that point, I'm sitting thinking to myself, what on earth is going on here? What is going on? And we're looking for solutions. Yep, I agree. Chilpil, Ida did have a terrible day. That is the thing. And of course, some people are saying, nonsense, he can't come out in the top corner every week. Well, that is the thing. We're talking about this game in isolation. That's what I'm saying. We're talking about one game in isolation. That just, it doesn't necessarily mean that we can't talk about it. And there's another one. Empty cells. A striker's only as good as the service that's given. None of that was there today. We missed Jota. I totally agree. I totally agree. I felt that we would have played Schlupp and Jota, maybe move things out a wee bit because we need to get minutes into their legs and get them up to speed. Kuhn, has he gone off the boil? Well, he scored during the week, of course, a massive goal, but I do agree with some of that. He's faded in and out of games, but by and large, I still think he's one of our most creative influences, and I would be more than happy to continually play him from the start. But back to the goal. Starts off with a throw, easy throw, it gets out, works its way out to the end. Nice, easy ball in, and there you go. Defenders just simply aren't picking up our man. Josh Campbell, boom, header, easy, done, 2-0. There's a strange call where they go to VAR for it. I mean, it's as clear as day that it is onside, but we'll go on to the referee and we'll go on to some of the peculiar behaviour of one of the linesmen. There was a lot of late flags going on. It was really bogging down the flow of the game. But 2-0, and after a lengthy VAR check, I don't know what they were looking for, the goal stands, and rightfully so. Celtic are 2-0 down, and as I say, at that point, I thought that it was really, really all she wrote. Didn't see us coming back. Thought we were down and out before we'd even get the second half underway. And as McLaughlin saying, where was Trusty at the opening goal? Exactly. The left side was ridiculous. Trusty is far too advanced. He's right out of position. Taylor's not doing him any favours. It's an easy ball. It should be something we should be mopping up. But those gaps were there from kickoff. Those gaps were absolutely huge, and it was a chasm. You could get an Arctic lorry through that gap. And Josh Campbell, as I say, what a performance he did today. Rightfully man of the match. But yeah, simple, basic errors from Celtic today. I don't know where their head was at. You would have thought, if anything, yeah, there's a wee disappointment if you're out of Europe. You've maybe got a bit of heavy legs after giving it your all. But at the same time, you should be buoyed by that performance. You should be buzzing. Albeit you're out, you think to yourself, look at what we did. That was a really, really solid performance. Let's build on that. That's my reading off it. I didn't expect that to happen, but as far as that goes, that is what we've got. We get to half time, we're 2-0 down. We need to make changes and we need to make them fast. Whatever the manager said, it certainly seemed to work, but 3 changes, very un-Brendan Rodgers like. Now that sums it up. That tells you exactly how rough things were. That he made 3 substitutions at half time. Taylor is rightfully dragged out the game. As we say, sound the klaxon. It's easy to jump all over Taylor. I get that. But again, talking about today in isolation, that was horrendous. It was quite comfortably one of his worst games ever for Celtic his entire time at the club. And I just felt if he was kept on, it was a ticking time bomb for a red card. It was coming. The manager does the right thing. He brings in Jeffrey Schlupp, and what an improvement you see. This is a guy who's still trying to find his feet, get himself fully up to speed with the way that we play, perhaps a wee bit of match sharpness. But you would have been mistaken. You would have been easily forgiven if you thought that guy had been playing constantly, because you really didn't notice any level of tiredness. I know it was only one half, but he looks so much sharper. Positional awareness is night and day. The energy, he just looks so much calmer and assured. We were doing a lot of our back passing. Now, I'm not going to criticise that. We were restarting the point of the focus of the attack and all that. But in that first half, every time a pass went backwards down the left-hand side, whether it was to Taylor or whether it was to Trusty, for me today, my heart was in my mouth. When you brought on Schlupp and you were doing that, I felt quite comfortable because I knew that he'd be far more composed on the ball and he was able to do what he had to do with it. We then drag off Adamida, and again, rightfully so. Yes, he didn't get the service, but when he then started to try and get himself involved in the game and looking, he was little to non-effective whatsoever. And as I say, this for me, we revert back to putting on Maeda through the middle. We then bring on Jota as well. We sacrifice McCowan. It's up for debate. I had this debate with Paddy. He said he would have pulled out Engels. Probably, as I say, because he's obviously got his very biased view at this moment in time towards him. But I can see why McCowan goes out. I don't think he does anything particularly bad in that first half. I don't think he was in any way, shape or form poor and deserving of getting dragged off the pitch. But if it's a toss-up between the two, I think firstly the manager's going to, of course, back his guy. He's going to double down. He spent a lot of money on Arnie Engels. I'm not saying that's the reason he keeps him on, but he is one of his marquee summer players. He's wanting to have him on the pitch. He's wanting to back him, as I says, and hope they can get it. But also, he'll be looking at the set pieces because he's a great delivery, and he'll be still thinking at the back of his mind, if we get set pieces, he's a better option than McCown. Now, I did see there was a comment there to turn around and say, should we start looking at McCown for free kicks? Yeah, I've seen that in his time at Dundee. It's maybe something that we should do because we need a wee bit of variation. We can't continually just depend on one player to be the guy who's taking all the corners and taking all the free kicks and all that kind of stuff for delivery. So yeah, definitely, I think we need to work on having at least one or two players, or two or three even, players that are good for set pieces and try and give ourselves options rather than just, well, oh, he's no on now, what are we going to do? But I can see why McCown's the one that comes off and Engels is kept on. In terms of the second half, much improved, without a doubt. Still quite slow start, but we're getting the ball out. We're trying to use the width a wee bit more. Started to see those overlaps with Kuhn and Alistair Johnson that were lacking in the first half. And of course, well, Jota's just doing Jota things, isn't he? You know, he gets on the ball. He was very direct, loads of tricks, constantly putting in decent launched ball, well, not launched balls. He does that wee sort of cute chip, wee curling ball in. Couple of good balls, punt it into the centre of the box. Couldn't have got on the end of some of them. Obviously, we're playing with Maeda, so is the lofted ball the best option there? Perhaps not, but he was still being far, far more effective than anything we saw in that first half. I thought the midfield had been shored up a wee bit. It wasn't fantastic, but the likes of Rio Hatate, now he's picking himself up. He's looking a lot better than he had done, and he has a fantastic ball through. It's an absolute brilliant. And again, I always talk about him, don't I? And I say, as much as he can be completely out the game, he'll have his moment. He's sometimes a moments player, and that was one. It comes to nothing, but it shows you the quality of having him there, and it's a brilliant long ball through, and it's Jota. He maybe just doesn't have that extra yard of pace at the moment to get on the end of it, and he can't get on the end of it, as we says. But that's as much as we got, because Hibs once again start to threaten. And again, it's another header. It's at the back post. Again, Kasper Schmeichel, fantastic. He probably to make a lot more saves than he bargained for. Make no doubt about it. But there we go. We talk about big moments and big players doing it when it needs to be. Saving our bacon. He's saving our bacon once again. We're 2-0 down. We're trying to claw our way back into the game, but he's still there making saves. And that's the important thing. That's the quality that you've got there. He was one of the few guys. I don't think we can really blame him too much. Some will say maybe the first one trundles by him a wee bit. Perhaps goalkeeper might do better there. But there's no doubt the boy takes it well, hits it with enough power, and he's no helped out. It's a through ball, nice and easy, too easy. And same with the back post the back post header for the second goal. Defence, what are they doing? It's a free header again. The boy gets up and over it, decent enough power, and I don't think you can blame Kasper Schmeichel there. For me, Kasper Schmeichel has been sold out by his defence on both goals, but he continually made save after save after save. But eventually, after chipping away and dragging ourselves back into the game, looking a wee bit more positive, we get our rewards. Maeda, the post-bald Maeda era is, quite frankly, one of the best things that's ever happened. We know how it works with Maeda. No hair, no flair. More hair, more flair. You just can't stop him now. You can't stop him. And he gets us back in it. 6 days, a good time to score. Because by that point, I felt that Hibs are starting to tire. I'm talking about our guys been tired for during the week. They just don't have the fitness levels. They're not quite on the same level as Celtic's fitness. And that really started to show because the legs started getting heavy. Celtic were winning more second balls. We were really starting to push them. It's turning the screw, and I thought, right, here we go. As soon as I went in and it went to 2-1, I really then at that point started to believe, because I could see before my eyes, Hibs were fading. Hibs were the ones that were now starting to hang on. So shot for Hatate, shot to nothing, loops up and over the top, and of course, who's there? Maeda, sharp as attack, and that's the thing. He's got that killer instinct. Now, we talked about saying about, what's his face, Ida being instinctive. Yeah, he is, but he doesn't have that quick speed that nobody's got that quick speed in Maeda. That just reactionary snap at a moment, boom, there you go, pokes it home. Rightfully so. He's played through the middle, and that's why I'm saying that we should be looking at. I don't know. I think until it becomes mathematically impossible for anybody to turn us over in the league, that I'm edging towards going with Maeda up front. I really am. I think that we should be looking at every game and trying to kill it as early as possible. How are we going to do that? Well, with our all-out attacking guys. We're fast guys that can do the press, that can get the ball in, can work in behind the defence. And this is Maeda. He's scored so many goals this season. He scored some classic cultured finishes, headers, instinctive, poking it home, on his backside, sticking a foot out, knocking it in the net. He's just nothing that he can do wrong at this season. And I think that he's really starting to give the manager a genuine headache moving forward. Now, of course, the manager has says that we want to get, and I want, and you'll no doubt want, a proper bona fide striker to come in who can be a first pick. Again, how does that work with Adam Ida? I do believe that he also, like Arnott Engels, will benefit from a full summer camp, getting into ways of how we're working, and I think you'll see the best out of him next season. I wouldn't judge either, particularly Adam Ida, until come December next season, because by that point he'll have been, the best bit in nearly 2 seasons at Celtic. So that's when people can start to cast their judgments properly on him. But with a new striker coming in, it's going to mean that we're probably looking at how well Maeda's went through the middle, and it's going to be more a question about who's going to be the third choice. Will we go out and get another third striker, or will we look at Maeda and think, well, we don't need to because we've got the versatility? But interesting to see how it goes forward. But he gets it in, and we start to work our way back in. The subs really did make an impact, as I say. For me, Schlupp, far more reassured, and I felt that made Carter Vickers and Trusty, just by default, look more assured. They looked a far lot more comfortable knowing that Schlupp was there to have their back, that if they were a wee bit forward, he'd be in behind and mop them up for them. And it really, really worked. But on top of that, plenty of power from him. He's good, a good sort of distribution, long balls, short balls. He bursts. He's got a good engine on him as well, despite his age. He's definitely somebody that I would like to keep hold of moving forward. But he does his part. Jota as well, fantastic when he came on. And that's what I want to touch on here. What did you think of the Jota chance? What was your reading off it? I'm just going to say right now, and it's not criticising, it's just how I see it. I think he was great. He does so well. He runs half the pitch and he chops in. And similarly what Ida done in the first half, he's got Kuhn in the middle, open, there for a tap in. And I think at that moment in time, he's thought to himself, I've ran this big mazy run, I've chopped back, and probably in his own mind, he's thinking of the goal, he's thinking of the celebration, he's thinking of standing doing his wee fist and thinking, I'm a hero. That's what footballers are. But it's particularly attacking flair players. There's that wee bit of glory hunter in them. And I think that when he looks back on it, it's the wrong decision. It's a poor decision. At that point, it doesn't matter who scores the goals as long as they go in. And Kuhn is in the middle. He's there. It's the easy pass. And that's it. And yeah, and I agree with that. I think, as Chris is saying, he should have passed. There's really no time for greed. And if there is, that's when you're in front. He's calling it glory hunting. And that's it. And there, as we say, as Big Dom says, Ida was hooked because he messed up a similar chance. And quite possibly because it was one of his few involvements in the game. And I think when the manager's looking and saying he's not really in the game, but what did he do when he was involved? Well, it wasn't great. And that probably plays into it. From there on, but we've got the wind in our sails. And as I say, Hibs are really starting to claw and desperately hang on. I felt that we were going. I didn't necessarily feel that we were going to go on and snatch a winner, but I definitely started to believe that we were going to drag ourselves back into it as we've done so often before. 80 minutes, there's another chance. It's a bit of a ricochet, always be a bit of a double save, bit of a peculiar one. It falls back out to Engels. He shoots, and that's as much as we're getting off it. With a couple of decent chances in the box, but we weren't really testing the goalkeeper or working them too much for my liking, albeit, as I say, we were getting loads of corners, we were getting loads of chances to get the ball into the box. Just nobody was getting on the end of them. Now, here's the point. Strap yourselves in, get your opinions in. I'll take a wee drink and we'll talk about it, because you know what's coming. Oh, dearie dear. Where do we start? Because it's 83 minutes and Maeda's got the ball in the net. And of course, Varce comes along. Now, again, credit to Maeda, because he just doesn't give up, does he? Speaking of folk that don't give up, or at least, well, he didn't give up. Alistair Johnson, the ball's cut out. He cuts it back in. Maeda's there, front post, boom, runs away with the ball. Fist pump, here we go, 2 each. And when that goes in, you're starting to think, well, here we go, because there's been a couple of VAR reviews here. There's been a couple of delays with dodgy offsides and things like that. And then we find out it's not given because the ball's out. Now, I've got a few things I want to play for you. One of them, I do apologise for the weird noise, because I downloaded the video courtesy of the X app, and there's a wee bit of noise in it. But here we go. So let's play them in order. I'll do it firstly like this. So this is how we see it. So as the ball's coming in, it cut back. We're near enough on the line. The next shot that we see is roughly about the point of contact. AJ, there he is, taking a swing at it. It's on the line 100%. Then this is the one. This is the key point. This is the one that they use for the decision. He's swinging at it. As we all know, a football's round. That means that part of that ball could well be over the line and still on the line, and thus it's in play. The entire ball needs to pass. We get another wee zoomer in there from a slightly different angle. I know it's very blurry, but what we're working here with is very, very limited. And of course, we then get this one, where you can see the line, you can see the ball, you can see him swinging at it. And here it is in all its video glory, a wee 18-second clip. Strap yourself in, let me know your thought. So, what are we saying here? What is your thoughts on it? I'll be perfectly honest with you. At the time, I thought the general consensus seems to be here that it's very hard to tell. And we'll go on to that, because that is going to be the annoying thing that we're going to be rattling on about. That's going to dominate the headlines. Make no doubt about it. Dom saying in, Chilpil's thinking it's out. McLaughlin very much sitting on the fence. It's hard to say. Pam, part of the ball looks on the line. Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? Here's the problem. It's hard to say. Did VAR fuck up? Well, the fact of the matter is we don't have the technology to say conclusively that it's in or out. Now, me personally, I'm very much on the camp of I thought it was out. Now, the reason I say I think it's out, and again, this is based on just my thoughts and nothing else. When you see when he's swinging at the ball there, it's pretty much near enough on the line. When you see his foot coming down, the ball's pretty much off. He then has to wrap his foot around the ball to get it back in. And as I look at that there, yes, you'll maybe see the ball's in movement. I think the ball's out. That's my take on it. However, I think the goal should stand. And the reason the goal should stand is because, as we'll go on to, we don't have the technology to conclusively give it. Now, as Big Dom rightfully says, the ref gave the goal. Brendan Rodgers spoke about it, and he indicates the linesman did not put up his flag. So, to that end, it really isn't a clear and obvious error. Now, what for me was wrong with this one was on the commentary after they says it's been wrote, it's been cut off, it's not a goal. They says that's a factual decision made by VAR. There's no need to review it. It's a factual decision. Right? Okay. offsides, ball out of play, they do tend to be factual. It's either is or it isn't. However, with the VAR system that we have got, it cannot be made as a factual, because those pictures that I showed you, that's the only angles we've got. It's a elevated angle looking down at it, at an angle, elevated and at an angle. Now, if you remember, or if you watch the EPL, certainly you watch Champions League, what would normally happen with the systems that they've got is they do have line technology. So you have saw this here very picture of Alistair Johnson swinging his foot at the ball. That would then turn into a wee funky animated graphic. They would then remove the player for the animated graphic. They would show you the line, and then they'd go above for top down, and they'd tell you definitively whether that ball was in or out. VAR in Scotland is incapable of making that decision. And as McLaughlin says here, it's inconclusive, and that is the reason why the goal has to stand. The referee gives it on the pitch. The official does not flag for it. And as I say, they do not have the technology. They can draw lines all they want, but they can't actually see conclusively from any of the available angles whether part of the ball is on the line or the ball's completely over. So to that end, they have to give it. It can't be a factual decision because they don't have the ability to make it fact. Now, I hate this. I hate the fact that that is, and there we go, inconclusive means that it's a goal. It is inconclusive, and as I'm saying, that's exactly why the goal should be standing. They do not have the means to say one way or another that that ball went out. And then that's why they have to go back and revert to the on-field decision. It's meddling for meddling's sake. It's not clear and obvious because, as we said, the referee gives it. And it can't be clear and obvious because if they can't even indicate that it's a mistake and that the balls went out of play, then how can a mistake have been made? It's quite frankly laughable. And until such a time as we scale up and move away from the cheapo version of VAR, unfortunately, these things are going to continually, time and time again, happen. It is the real problem with it. And the manager said as much from it. He says, in his experience, they don't have the means to do it. He says the right thing, the goal should stand. So I'm really, really looking interested to the next VAR review to hear what pitiful excuse we get for this one. Because what you'll probably find is, do you ever remember, if cast your mind back to the penalty and it was Hibs and Rangers, and you had Colm sitting there and he says, oh, it's one of those ones that you'll not like the answer to. It's subjective. It's a grey area. And in this case, the referee has given the penalty and VAR have agreed with that and we back his decision. Equally, however, if he didn't give the penalty and it went to VAR and he says it was not a foul, we would also agree with that. What? I mean, that's what you're going to get. That's what we're going to get served up with this one. And I agree. I hope that Celtic very rarely, despite what Rangers fans will tell you, go after refs and officials. But as Dom's saying, Celtic are due a very good explanation on this one. And he says an almighty blunder. I don't think it is an almighty blunder. I think it's a very cheap opportunity to influence a game. Mr. Alan Muir. Now, if you don't know who Alan Muir is, listen, I'm people maybe say this is conspiracy, but just for debate's sake, just for to say it, Alan Muir's got a real history, some really ropey decisions when it comes to Celtic playing, and he found himself in chief of VAR today. His most famous ones probably, and I know I'm trudging up and going way back, but if you ever remember that semi-final, and we remember used to have extra additional referees or officials on the line behind the goals. Well, Alan Muir didn't see, despite looking at it, the handball when Griffiths headed to hit the ball in the area. He didn't see that. And he also, if you remember against Motherwell, when Maeda gets clubbed in the back of the neck and he doesn't get a penalty, that was Alan Muir and all. That was another interesting one. So there's some pretty ropey decisions there that Alan Muse made in time by Celtic. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that that's I'm not necessarily saying that that is a case there, but we'll see what happens, won't we? I just find it slightly laughable that when you don't have the means to make a decision, that you are, as Brendan Rodgers says, taking a guess, you're taking a fresh air shot, you're closing your eyes, swirling your finger about it and going, boom, that's my decision. They might as well just had one of the wee spinning things that be yes, no on it and just went and waited to see what it landed on. Because that's what they've done there. And there's no doubt in my mind, and I hate it. I hate the fact that this is what's going to dominate the next few days when we talk about this game. Refereeing decisions. And it will detract from the real truth, which is, aside from maybe about 65 minutes onwards, Celtic were gash. They were garbage. And that's the true story. Hibs played well. Hibs would have been hard done by, I think, if they came out of that game with no points. If Celtic were to have got that goal, 83 minutes, we knew with the amount of lengthy VAR stoppages, we've seen it, 8 minutes or something added on. So Celtic probably would have went on the ascendancy, and it could have been well in the question that we would have snatched a victory there. Very, very possible. Very possible. Particularly because that would have been such a gutbuster for them so late on in the game. But equally, by getting chopped off, it sort of knocked the stuffing out of us. We kept trying and prodding and trying to do the best things, but you could notably see that it was a real malaise. There was a real disappointment in it, because we went for the complete elation to the scratching our heads, and that'll eat into your mind, and that's the problem. And yeah, some of you are bringing up some things here, then, and this is true. It's a bit. It's surely VAR needs to be upgraded. You know what, Dom? That's it. But how much does it cost? Do we know these things? How much does VAR cost for? I believe we work on a four camera system, and it says if you've been to games, they're in the stands, they're at an elevated sort of position, and they go at different angles, and we draw. And I think it's closer to like Hawkeye that we've got, that you would see in the tennis. But the one thing that we don't have is obviously the line technology, and particularly the goal mouth technology. Those are the big ones. Those are the ones that are really, really huge. So if you can't have that bit of extra technology, then you at least need to have additional cameras. You need up the number of cameras to get a more even spread off the pitch. That's as simple as that. And that's why, until that's done, it's something that we're going to have to deal with. People still shout for take it away, get rid of it. I don't think that's the way to go, for multiple reasons. One, just for the standard of the game, the opinion on the game, movement of times, yada, I know, movement of times, and also, and you'll laugh at this one, referees theoretically won't get any better if they don't have the technology. And to that end, we'll never have guys, and I know it's against laughable, we'll never have referees doing Champions League, European qualifiers, European tournament, World Cup, etc., etc. It'll not happen. And fundamentally, Willie Collum, whether you like him, hate him, no opinion on him, I do think he's trying to do the right thing. He's trying to change the way things are working, but it's just not working. He's fighting against a heavy tide, and this will just be another one that he's going to have to sit in his wee show and probably, squirm and absolutely spewing up at the thought of having to talk about. There's no doubt in my mind that it has to be a goal for the reasons that we've just covered there, and that's it. And that's the game. It tails out. No more substitutions. And again, coming back to that, what does that say about the bench? When you look at the bench, once again, there's how much is there really to go to? Look at the bench, but you take away the options there, it's really, really hard to tell. Do you bring on Yang? We've been complaining about him. Do you throw the roll of dice and bring on Kenny? There's really not a lot of stuff there that makes too much of a difference. I says Hatai gets himself on the pitch, and I think he does well, but we bring on all the guys that can influence. We bring on Jota, we bring on Hatate, we bring on Schlupp. They're realistically the only guys on that bench there that make that much of a difference, and we rolled that dice. It would be nice to have more options, and there's no doubt that's something the managers have been going to look at. But yeah, bit deflating. But, well, did you see it coming? No, I didn't either. As Tom says, yeah, I was angry until I seen the Rangers result. But I was consigned to the fact I thought they were just going to go out there with all the make Rangers great again and all the the boisterous news that they'd been getting through the week, that they would go out and absolutely topple St Mirren, despite me knowing that they're a very well drilled, very well organised team. But there we go. We get away with one. It just seems every single time that even when we leave the door slightly open, they don't walk through it. I'll take it. Brilliant. But we still come out of this in the same position that we were and slightly better off in the goal difference front. I mean, how daft is that? That's just the absolute ridiculousness that is Scottish football at this moment in time. And as Dom's saying, and I just say that there myself, we don't have the depth or quality that's needed. I think when the summer comes, make no doubt about it, there may well now be a changing of the guard from a standpoint of Rangers behind the scenes, and whether we want to laugh at that or whatever, that'll definitely mean that they're going to do what they always do. They'll bring in new players and they'll reset and they'll go for a new challenge. So it's up to us to, whilst we're on top, to do the right thing, to get behind the manager and give him exactly what it is, because the clock is ticking. As McLaughlin saying, there's 11 games left to go. Can anybody smart there in the comments tell me how many games we need to win before it becomes mathematically impossible? Let me know, because I can't do that quick math, but it's got to be at least half of that, I would say. And certainly we've got one coming up against Dame. That's very, very important to do. And as MT is saying here, there's no doubt about it. Bernardo and Forrest, we're talking about those options to change things up, not having them. Again, it only highlights, though, how short the squad really is, because even if you drop them in, you're going to end up with one of the midfielders that we rotate between Engels, Hatate. They're one of them, McCown, one of them are going to be sitting there on the bench. We're still going to have Johnny Kenny. You're still going to have Yang sitting there. So we really need to, I think we're about 4 quality players off a right good squad. I'd be looking to keep hold of Schlupp. Definitely, I would want him around. With Kieran Tierney coming in, then you've also got to think of long-term planning for that left back. Your long-term is probably, you're hoping, going to be Kieran Tierney, but as we know, he's going to be a guy we're going to have to nurture, we're going to have to look after, we're going to have to rotate him in and out. And for next season, definitely, we'll get away with that with Schlupp, but you're only going to get a Moyesque 1-year contract out of Schlupp. So I'd like to have a third option ready to go there, where we can rotate through in that position. In terms of midfielders, I think with Bernardo coming back, Engels, if we keep hold of Hatate, McGregor's going to be there, we know that, and McCown, there's a decent bit of scope there, but I think we still do need a wee bit of metal in the midfield, a bit of strength, a bit of power. Schlupp will up, give us that option, of course, but we shouldn't be looking at him as a Swiss Army knife to cover various positions. The manager needs to be putting his foot down and getting him in. Big Dom shouting for Christegarden. Absolutely. If he's going to be your go-to striker, go and get him. Make it happen. If this Norwegian boy is going to be the additional winger attacking option, go and get him. Do the business early. We've got a playoff to get into Champions League. It's going to be a one-off game. One-off tie, of course. One-off game, 2 ties, home and away. But looking at what we could be facing, there's no reason why we shouldn't be looking and thinking that we'll be taking them out. Could we take them out with the squad we've got right now if we don't lose anybody? I would believe so, but I won't want to run that risk. And that's what Celtic need to be doing. That's what the manager needs to be doing. He needs to be getting in there and putting the foot down. A lot of people say by him not bringing on any more subs in this game that he was sending a message to the board. I don't think he's sending a message to the board. I think he's just simply looking at the bench and going, none of yous can do anything for me. Now, by default, and as a result of him not bringing on, yeah, they might look at it, the board might look at it and say, well, he didn't bring anybody on there, he obviously doesn't fancy it. But what I would say about Brendan Rodgers is, he doesn't need to send subliminal messages. If he's unhappy, he'll just walk in and say, give me players, particularly when the summer's up. Did he push it enough in January? Hard to tell. But when the summer comes up off the back of this Champions League campaign, all the money we'll have generated for that, as we say, is at the moment on the box seat to go on and retain the title. And we've got another tricky game. We've got Hibs coming up in the Cup, so don't take that as a given. But if we get past them, you're sitting pretty potential on the verge of a treble. If he delivers a treble, along with how we've done the Champions League, along with we've seen the interim accounts, yada, 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 blah, 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 he's got a lot in the bank to walk in there and start making demands. And that's what we need to do. Get some players in there. Like Paddy's saying, right? We might see Edward. Oh, no. Would you go back to Edward? I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, there's no doubt there's a quality player in there, but I kind of want a wee bit of freshness. I don't mind going back to Jota because it was so recent and, he didn't really play much after he left us. It's not like he's been away for a couple of seasons, 2, 3 seasons, 4 seasons or whatever it has been like with Edward, and it's just been kind of garbage. He was away for a coffee break and then came back. Coffee break about 25 million and then came back. So it was different with Jota, bringing him back, and Tierney, as we say, that's always one that was going to pull at the heartstrings and was always going to be coming back. But we need to think of new ideas. Dom's saying it again, freshen it up. I'm no doubt in my mind the manager does have plans to move forward, and he's got new exciting talents that's get lined up. What's this doctor, as we say, is this fit by Dr. Tisdale? It's meant to be coming in, revolutionising how we do things, including our scouting and development. Well, come the summer, he better start writing some fucking prescriptions, because by God, Celtic's team needs a wee bit of TLC, and it needs a doctor to get a wee bit of seen to, because the depth and quality is not quite there, as people are rightly stepping in and saying. But we finish it disappointed. I ain't gonna lie, pretty gutted, and I think we've all got a right to feel that we've been a wee bit robbed. I think that we had been with points taken away from us by slightly nefarious means, if not just the means of sheer negligence of the SFA and that garbage version of VAR that they've dished us up. Will the mistakes that we've seen throughout the course of this season make any difference? Will the clubs band together and look to, because let's face it, the VAR is implemented largely, let's be honest here, by Celtic, Rangers, and then there'll be a tier drop down. Probably Aberdeen, Hibs, Hearts be paying more into that VAR pot than the ones down the bottom end. Will Celtic, will Rangers, I know you'll laugh when I say that, but will the likes of Celtic and our clubs around it feel that hard done by across the decisions against them this season to demand change and ultimately go into their own pockets and invest in technology and invest in the Scottish game? Or will the SFA supplement what we are giving them and bring it up a wee bit? Because there's no doubt that we need to be looking at it. And no amount of VAR review, as good as I think that is for the level of transparency, even though it's after the event, that's not going to change it. Coaching these guys and poring over the tapes and everything else that we tell them to do isn't going to change it. At the end of the day, the only thing that's going to change it is getting the proper good version in, getting the line technology, and then we can stop having these ridiculous conversations like this after another contentious VAR decision. But then, as we say, is just for jokes, because let's mention it, Ibrox, St Mirren rock up, and 2-0. All right, cool. No worries. Talk about shitting on the parade. St Mirren certainly done that. It was a boo fest 2024 at Ibrox. And you know what? We got away with one. We can laugh. But as I say, it just goes to show you, because this is a couple of times now where we've dropped the ball and Rangers have failed to pick it up. They've kind of grabbed hold of it and then dropped it, and it's burst. And the time will eventually come, probably, when they won't bottle every chance that we give them. Probably going to be a new manager, probably going to be a new team, another revolution. But we can't take these things for granted. They're going to keep happening, because 13 points, we need to win roughly, about 5 games to get through. We've got 2 games against them, but had they dragged it back to 10 points, it doesn't seem as comfortable. I know 10 points is massive, and I know the goal difference is humongous, but just on face value, 10 points is it's an extra bit closer to us. It's not as, doesn't look as good, doesn't look as sort of comfortable. And even with 2 games, I don't think that they would beat us 2 games, but they would always have that hope. And as we say, I never take anything for granted, particularly after last season, where the way we had that mammoth lead and then we lost it and then we eventually dragged it back because of the quality. So I just think that for me, yeah, we need to make sure that we are putting our foot down, killing these games off early, getting it over the line, mathematically impossible, reset, summer, get the players in and go again, because change is coming elsewhere. Change needs to come with us. As I said in a piece that I mentioned on that situation, you need evolution to succeed, not revolution. And if Celtic want to keep on top, we need to keep evolving. We need to keep moving forward. We need to keep on adding to this team. We've managed to get rid of a lot of the deadwood. We've got people out the door that have just been stinking the place out. We've got a couple of guys out on loans with options to buy. Your Palmas, your Lagerbielkas, there could be fees coming in for them. And that's the thing. Get rid of the filler and get in the ones that are going to be the thriller, that are going to give what we need for all fronts, because we go back in, and as with every year, from the kickoff, you're on 4 fronts. We've seen, again, possibly a European hangover. If we were to have won that game, managed to get through against Munich, as improbable as that sounded to some people, we would have had another 2 games to look at. The longer Europe goes on, the more you need that squad, and that's it. We need to get it sorted. But I'm happy how things panned out. All's well that ends well on this Saturday night, because we fucking slip up in Edinburgh, and then our closest rivals, FC, fail once again to get the job done. So I'll take that. It is what it is. We dust ourselves down. We get ready for midweek. We go again. The games are coming thick and fast. And as I say, we need to get this one done. So anyway, that's us for tonight. Thanks for taking your time to come and talk Celtic with us. I'm really looking forward to the explanation about that one. I expect the board and the Mr. CEO to come out and, for once, have proper backbone, back up the manager and ask the questions. It's not going to change anything, but I really want to see how a decision that's apparently a factual overturn is so when you don't have the means to factually state what they are telling you. Anyway, until the next time, take care of yourselves, and as always, hail, hail. See you later. Bye.